last time I wore gloves in summer, people thought I was eccentric. Now I wear them because the alternative is knowing exactly which of the 5 most powerful alphas in Incheon ordered the hit on my life, and I am not ready for that answer, not yet. Not while I am standing in the lobby of their pack house with a government bond document in my hand and absolutely nowhere else to go. Let me back up. My name is Noh Sunwoo. I am 24 years old, I am an Omega, and I have a gift that sounds incredible until you understand what it actually costs. I can read the history of anything I touch with my bare hands. Objects, walls, skin, one contact, and I see everything: the rage, the love, the lies baked into something like heat rising off summer pavement. I touched my landlord's pen last month and watched 3 years of him forging rent receipts play out behind my eyes like a film nobody asked to screen. It is not a blessing. It is an extremely inconvenient way to find out that everyone around you is lying. I have been wearing gloves since I was 16, black ones in winter, thin cotton ones in summer. My best friend Incheon calls them my villain aesthetic. I call them survival. Now here is where it gets funny, and by funny I mean the kind of funny where you laugh so you do not burn the whole city down. 6 months ago I had a life, a real one. I was a junior sound engineer at a mid-sized production label in Incheon. I had a studio apartment near Bupyeong Station that smelled like instant coffee and ambition, and I was 3 months away from my certification exam. I wore my suppressants on schedule. I kept my head down. I did not bother anyone. Then the Yeon pack happened, not to me directly, not at first. It started as rumors, the kind that travel fast in Omega circles, whispered over lab tables and in bathroom stalls, that the Yeon pack, the most influential alpha pack in all of Incheon, had filed a formal designation complaint against an unnamed Omega at my label. Misconduct, scent manipulation, inappropriate bonding attempts toward pack members. I remember reading the notice posted in the break room and thinking, wow, that poor person. That poor person was me. I found out on a Tuesday. My supervisor called me in, slid a printed document across his desk without making eye contact, and told me my contract was being terminated effective immediately pending investigation. I asked what investigation. He said he could not discuss it. I asked who filed the complaint. He said he could not discuss that either. I asked if I could at least know what I had allegedly done, and he looked at the ceiling like it personally owed him an apology. I was escorted out of the building with my desk items in a paper box. My badge was deactivated before I reached the elevator. I stood on the street in the June heat with a box of sticky notes and a novelty mug my mother gave me, and I thought, okay. There has been a mistake and I will fix it. I could not fix it. The complaint had already moved through the Omega Designation Bureau. In the omegaverse, a pack complaint carries the weight of a court filing. Without a bonded alpha or a registered pack vouching for my character, I was essentially a defendant with no lawyer in a court that had already decided. My certification exam was suspended. My studio apartment lease was flagged landlords do not rent to Omegas under active designation review, a law I had never needed to know existed until it applied to me. My suppressant prescription required a licensed alpha physician co-signature to renew, and every clinic I called said they were not currently accepting unaffiliated Omegas. In 4 weeks, I lost my job, my apartment, my certification, and my medical access. In the Omegaverse, that is not bad luck. That is a targeted dismantling. Someone knew exactly which pillars to knock out and in what order. Someone who understood the system well enough to use it like a weapon. The Yeon pack has 5 members. I knew their names the way everyone in Incheon knew them, from headlines, from pack territory maps, from the kind of careful social avoidance that Omegas practice, the way other people practice budgeting. Yeon Hajun, pack leader, 30 years old. The kind of alpha whose silence feels like a physical object in the room. Co Kangmin, second. Runs the pack's legal operations. Polished in a way that makes your teeth hurt. Oh Junho, third, former national athletics champion, looks friendly. The ones who look friendly are always the most dangerous. Lim Chae-yul, fourth. Pack strategist, barely speaks. When he does, people write it down. Han Yujin, fifth and youngest, 26, reportedly the most volatile. Reportedly also the one the others let handle situations that require a certain creative brutality. One of these 5 men dismantled my entire life from a conference room somewhere while I was eating convenience store kimbap and wondering why my calls were going unanswered. I did not know which one. I still do not. And here is the problem with psychometry: it only works when I touch something. It does not work as a targeting system. It does not send me helpful notifications. It just waits, silent and patient, until my skin makes contact with an object or a person, and then it shows me everything whether I want to see it or not. Which brings me back to the lobby. The government bond document in my hand is the result of an obscure Omegaverse legal provision that my bureau-appointed advocate found after I spent 2 months fighting the designation complaint from a Jim Jill Bangle floor with borrowed Wi-Fi. Provisional pack integration, an old law almost never used. If an Omega under active designation review can demonstrate documented harm caused by a specific pack, that pack is legally required to provide housing and provisional care until the case resolves. Documented harm. Check. Specific pack. Check. The Yon pack's own legal filing was the evidence that destroyed me. Co Kangmin, their legal alpha, had signed every page. He had handed me the exact weapon I needed and did not even know it. So here I am, box of belongings at my feet, cotton gloves on my hands. Government document that essentially says 5 alphas who ruined my life are now legally obligated to house me. The pack house is enormous. Of course it is. It sits at the edge of Songdo, all glass and clean lines, and the kind of architectural confidence that comes from generations of unchallenged dominance. The lobby smells like cedar and black tea and something deeper underneath pack scent, layered and warm and involuntarily appealing in a way that makes me want to turn around and walk directly into traffic instead. A staff member takes my document, disappears through a door. I look around the lobby and find a security camera in the corner and give it my most pleasant smile. I hope someone is watching. The door opens. 5 men step through it. 5 alphas, all height and broad shoulders in careful stillness, staring at the Omega who just legally moved himself into their home. Yan Hajun's eyes find mine across the lobby. Something shifts in his expression. Not anger, not recognition. Something quieter. Something that looks almost like guilt. My psychometry does not activate through eye contact. But I have been reading people without touching them my whole life, and what I see on Yeon Hajun's face in that first second tells me everything I need to know. He knows exactly who I am. And he did not expect me to show up smiling. Good. I have spent 6 months being the person things happen to. I am done with that role. The casting director has been fired. Nobody moves for a full 3 seconds. I count them. 1, 2, 3. 5 of the most powerful alphas in Incheon, standing in their own lobby looking at me like I am a variable they did not account for in an equation they were certain they had already solved. If I were a lesser man, I might find that intimidating. I find it deeply satisfying Yeon Hajun recovers first. He is exactly what his reputation promised tall contained, the kind of still that is not calm but controlled. Dark eyes that do not give anything away except that one flicker I already caught and filed under evidence. He crosses the lobby toward me at a measured pace and stops at a distance that is polite but deliberate, far enough that I cannot touch him without making a visible effort to do so. Interesting choice. Noh Sunwoo, he says. His voice is lower than I expected. It lands in the room with the quiet authority of someone who has never needed to raise it. Yan Hajun, I say back, with the same energy. Love what you have done with the lobby. Very cold billionaire, very intimidating. The marble really says we will ruin your life and not lose sleep over it. Behind him, Oh Junho makes a sound that might be a laugh disguised as a cough. Hajun does not turn around, but something in his jaw tightens. Co Kangmin steps forward. He is the one who signed the legal documents, every page. I know his signature the way I know my own name now. He is polished the way expensive things are polished, surfaces maintained, edges buffed down, nothing rough enough to catch on. He looks at my government document in the staff member's hand with the expression of a man who has just realized his own chess move was reversed on him. The provisional pack integration filing, he says. Not a question. His voice is smooth and professionally neutral and absolutely furious underneath, in a way only someone paying close attention would catch. It was processed yesterday. Stamped and certified. I confirm pleasantly. You can call the bureau if you want. I have the case number memorized. I also have it saved in 3 separate cloud accounts because I learned recently that documents have a way of disappearing when powerful people find them inconvenient. Kangman's eyes sharpen. There it is. Just for a second. A crack in the polish. I smile at him and he looks like he wants to file another complaint just on principle. Lim Cheol has not moved from his original position. He stands slightly apart from the others, arms at his sides, watching me with the focused attention of someone solving a problem in real time. He has not spoken. He has barely blinked. He is the one I cannot read yet, not from body language, not from expression, and that bothers me more than I want to let on. The unreadable ones are either innocent or the most guilty. There is no in-between. Han Yujin is the youngest, and it shows not in his face but in the way he is failing to control his reaction. He keeps looking between me and Hajun like he is waiting for someone to tell him this is not actually happening. His scent is the most agitated of all 5 of them, something sharp cutting through the warm cedar of the pack's collective smell. Anger, maybe. Or something adjacent to it. Oh Junho is the only one who looks almost amused. He is broad-shouldered and open-faced with the kind of easy physicality that comes from years of athletic discipline, and he is watching me the way someone watches a street performance they did not plan to stop for but cannot walk away from. You are smaller than I expected, Junho says. You are less perceptive than your face suggests, I reply. He grins, an actual full grin. Hajun shoots him a look that could strip paint. The filing is legally binding, I continue. Because I did not come here to make small talk, I came here to survive and also to make their lives considerably more complicated as a personal bonus. Under Omegaverse Statute 41C, a pack found to have caused direct designation harm to an unaffiliated Omega is required to provide housing, medical access, and provisional care for the duration of the Bureau's review period. The review period is estimated at 4 to 6 months. I have a box. Someone should probably show me my room. Silence. It is a very loud silence. Eugene actually makes a noise out loud. You cannot be serious. I can be and I am deeply serious, spiritually serious. I tilt my head. Did you want to call the Bureau yourself or should I give you the number? This is a legal matter that requires review, Kangman says tightly. He is looking at the document now, eyes moving fast, and I can tell he is searching for the loophole he should have closed before he signed his name on every single page of the original complaint. I could almost feel sympathy for him. Almost. Review all you want, I say. The filing is already active, meaning as of right now, today, this hour, I am under provisional pack protection. Which means if anything happens to me, my case status, or my belongings between now and when your legal team finishes their very thorough review, the Bureau escalates automatically to a full pack investigation. I smile pleasantly, but I am sure none of you have anything to worry about. Hajun has been quiet through all of this. He is still watching me with that carefully arranged expression and those dark eyes that have not left my face since he walked in. I look back at him directly because I was raised to hold eye contact, and also because I want him to understand that I know he recognized me and I know he is calculating, and I am calculating right back. You came here alone, he says finally. I am here, aren't I? Your advocate, your family. A pause that feels like a door being tested. You have no pack support. I have a government document and excellent memory, I say. I find that covers most situations. Something moves behind his eyes, not guilt this time. Something more complicated. Something that almost looks like reluctant respect before he locks it back down behind that controlled expression. He turns to the staff member holding my document. Prepare the East Wing guest room. His voice does not invite discussion. Nobody offers any. He looks back at me, and for 1 second the lobby is very quiet, and his scent cedar and cold mountain air, and something underneath that I cannot name pushes against my awareness, like a question I am not ready to answer. Welcome to the Yuan Pack House, he says, and it sounds nothing like welcome. Thank you, I say, and it sounds nothing like gratitude. I pick up my box. I follow the staff member toward the east hallway. I do not look back, but I hear Eugene's voice dropping low behind me, sharp and aimed at Hajun. You said this was handled, and Hajun's reply, quieter, it was. Then explain him. I keep walking. My gloved hands tighten around my box. My psychometry is perfectly silent behind the cotton barrier, and I am grateful for it right now because if any one of those 5 men had touched me in that lobby, even accidentally, I would have seen everything. And I need to choose when I am ready for the truth, not them, me. I repeat that to myself 3 times while the staff member leads me down a hallway that costs more per square foot than my entire former apartment. The floors are pale stone. The walls are a warm off-white, broken up by framed architectural photography and the occasional piece of modern art that probably has a name I would not recognize and a price tag I would not survive knowing. The whole place smells like the 5 of them layered together, cedar and salt, and something warm and faintly sweet underneath. Pack scent so thick it feels like walking through someone else's exhale. My nose is unfortunately excellent. Omega biology at its most inconvenient. I breathe through my mouth until I stop noticing it. The East Wing guest room turns out to be larger than my last apartment. I stand in the doorway for a moment and take a personal inventory of my feelings about that. Decide they are too complicated to address right now and walk inside. There is a bed with actual linen, a window that looks out over a private courtyard, a desk and a bathroom, with floor tiles that are warmer than my personality on a good day. I set my box down on the desk. The staff member bows slightly and says someone will bring my provisional care documentation within the hour. I thank him. He leaves. The door clicks shut. I sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress is obscenely comfortable. I hate it here, I tell the empty room, and then I lie down for exactly 4 seconds to confirm my suspicion before sitting back up because I did not come to Incheon's most powerful pack house to take a nap. I came to find out which one of them destroyed my life. Comfort is a distraction. Comfort is how they get you. I pull off my gloves and set them on the desk beside my box. Without them, my hands feel exposed in the way they always do inside an unfamiliar space, too aware of every surface, every object holding its history just beneath the texture. I do not touch anything yet. I stand in the center of the room and do a slow visual survey of everything in it. A room tells you things even before you touch it. The desk has no scratches. The shelves are empty. This room has not been used in a long time, maybe ever in any regular sense. It is a guest room in the truest meaning, a space maintained for a visitor nobody expected. Which means nobody planted anything here. Good. I am not paranoid, I just have extensive experience with how quickly a situation can be engineered around you while you are busy trusting people. A knock at the door. I put my gloves back on. Come in. It is Oh Junho. He fills the door frame in a way that is probably involuntary, but still manages to communicate a significant amount of physical confidence. He is carrying 2 cups of something hot, and he holds one out toward me with the energy of a man who has decided we are going to be friendly whether I cooperate or not. Barley tea, he says. The house staff makes it fresh every evening. I look at the cup. I look at him. Did Hajun send you? No. Did Kangman? Also no. Did anyone send you, or did you come here independently to perform a welcoming gesture at a person your pack just spent 6 months dismantling? He has the decency to look briefly uncomfortable before he recovers. I came because I thought you might want something warm and because standing in a new place alone is terrible even when you are angry. I study his face. Open expression, easy posture, the slight forward lean of someone who defaults to warmth. He looks exactly like the type of person you trust immediately. I have been burned by exactly that type twice before. I take the tea because I am cold and petty, not because I trust him. Thank you, I say, and I mean maybe 40% of it. He leans against the doorframe rather than coming inside, which I appreciate more than I plan to tell him. A small mercy of personal space, recognized and honored. You are not what any of us expected, he says. What did you expect? Someone scared. He says it plainly, without apology, which I respect against my better judgment. Someone the Bureau sent. Someone quiet. I am quiet, I say. I am extremely quiet. I am so quiet that I spent 2 months on a Jimjilbang floor researching obscure designation law on borrowed Wi-Fi without complaining to a single person. I sip the tea. It is very good. I resent that. The difference between quiet and scared is about 6 months of having absolutely nothing left to lose. Junho is silent for a moment. His expression shifts into something that is not quite guilt but neighbors it closely. Sunwoo, I am going to stop you there, I say pleasantly. Whatever that sentence was going to be, I do not want it tonight. I just got here. I have not even unpacked my 1 box. Let me at least arrange my sticky notes before someone tries to explain things to me. His mouth pulls sideways. Not quite the full grin from earlier. Something more careful. Fair enough. He pushes off the doorframe to leave and then stops. His hand is on the door, and he is looking at a point somewhere past my shoulder, and his voice drops just slightly when he speaks again. For what it is worth, and I understand completely, if it is worth nothing, I did not know the complaint would go that far. The room gets very quiet. I process that sentence from every angle simultaneously. I did not know it would go that far. Which means he knew something. Which means he was involved at a level that had some boundary he apparently believed would hold. A boundary he watched get crossed and said nothing about, and is only now mentioning because I am standing in his pack house with a government document and an inconvenient amount of legal knowledge. I keep my face completely neutral. It is one of my best skills. Good night, Oh Junho, I say. He leaves. The door clicks shut a second time. I put my tea down on the desk without touching the surface directly. My hands are very still inside my gloves. My heart is doing something loud and complicated behind my ribs that I am going to address later, in private after I have made a list. I did not know it would go that far. 5 alphas. 1 complaint. And now one of them has already told me more than he meant to within 2 hours of my arrival. I open my box. I take out my notebook. I write Junho's name at the top of the first page and underneath it, in careful letters, what he just said and what it means and what it does not yet tell me. I am not here to fall apart. I am not here to be comforted or claimed or folded back into someone else's story about what an Omega is supposed to do when powerful people hurt him. I am here for the truth. All of it. Every piece. And I have 4 more alphas to go. Somewhere down the hall, a door opens and closes, and I hear footsteps that are too measured and deliberate to belong to anyone but Yeon Hajun, pausing for exactly 2 seconds outside my door before continuing past. He does not knock, but he stopped. I write his name on the second line. Then I stare at both names for a long time, my pen hovering over the page, the pack house settling into its nighttime sounds around me. Distant footsteps, a door somewhere. The low register of voices too far away to make out words, but close enough to confirm that nobody in this building is particularly relaxed right now. Good. They should not be relaxed. I am not relaxed. Solidarity through mutual discomfort. I cap my pen. I change into the cleanest thing in my box, which is a soft gray pullover and dark pants that have survived 6 months of difficult living with more dignity than I have. I set my gloves on the nightstand where I can reach them immediately. I lie down in the obscenely comfortable bed and I stare at the ceiling and I tell myself to sleep because a tired Sunwoo is a sloppy Sunwoo, and I cannot afford sloppy. I am asleep in 4 minutes. The mattress is genuinely that good and I refuse to feel guilty about it. I wake to the smell of doenjang jigai and the sudden disorienting awareness that I am not on a jjimjilbang floor anymore. It takes me exactly 3 seconds to remember where I am. Then I put my gloves on and sit up and have a brief internal conversation with myself about the day ahead. The conversation goes, you are in the house of the people who ruined you. Stay sharp. Do not eat their food just because it smells incredible. I eat their food. It smells incredible, and I have been surviving on convenience store ramen for weeks. And I am a person with limits, not a saint. The kitchen is at the end of the main hall, and it is already occupied when I get there. Not by all 5 of them, which is the scenario I had mentally prepared for. Just Lim Child, sitting at the far end of a long kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and a tablet, reading something with the focused silence of a man who exists on a separate atmospheric layer from everyone else. He looks up when I walk in. He looks back down at his tablet. I take that as permission to exist in the same room. The kitchen is warm and well-stocked and blessedly straightforward in its layout. I find a bowl, find the pot of jjigae on the stove, serve myself a portion that is dignified but honest, and sit down at the opposite end of the table from Chae-yul. We eat in silence. Or he reads and I eat, which produces the same result. I am halfway through my bowl when he speaks without looking up. You researched all 5 of us before you filed. It is not a question. I consider him over my spoon, obviously. You know our positions in the pack, our legal structure. Still reading or appearing to. You understood that the PPI filing would force cohabitation, rather than just financial compensation. I did. You chose cohabitation deliberately. I did. Now he looks up. His eyes are sharp and dark and entirely unimpressed, which is the most interesting thing about him, because every other alpha I have encountered defaults to some form of dominance display within the first few minutes. Cheol just looks at me like I am a document he is deciding whether to approve. Why, he says, I eat another spoonful of jjigae. It is excellent. Someone in this house knows how to cook, and I am choosing to appreciate that separately from all my other feelings. Because financial compensation does not tell me which one of you filed the original complaint. Living here does. A pause. Clean and precise like a scalpel laid down on a tray. You are here to investigate us, he says. I am here because your PAC's legal filing made me homeless and medically inaccessible for 6 months, I say pleasantly. The investigation is a personal bonus. He holds my gaze for 3 full seconds, which in alpha social language is a territorial gesture, a test of whether I will look away first. I do not look away. I have been practicing this since I was 17 and a PAC alpha at my secondary school tried the same thing in a convenience store line. I won then too. Chae-yul looks back at his tablet. The jjigae was made by the house staff. They start at 6. If you want coffee, there is a second machine on the counter behind you, the one on the left. The right one is Eugen's and he has opinions about it. I blink. Is that you being helpful? It is me being informational, he says. There is a difference. I turn around and look at the 2 coffee machines. They are identical, except that the one on the right has a small piece of tape on it with what appears to be Eugen's name written in very deliberate characters, like a kindergartner who has learned about property rights and taken them seriously. I face forward again. How old is he? 26 or 9, depending on the day, Chael says, and his voice is so flat and so completely serious that it takes me a full second to realize that was a joke. I almost smile. I arrest this expression before it fully forms. I am not here to find these people charming. I am here to find out which one of them ruined my life. Those are mutually exclusive missions, and I intend to keep them that way. The kitchen fills up faster than I expected. Junho arrives first, bright-eyed in a way that confirms he is one of those morning people who should be studied by science. He sees me, sees my bowl, and looks genuinely pleased in a way that is either sincere or the best long con I have ever witnessed. Han Yu-jin comes in 2 minutes later wearing an oversized training jacket and an expression of profound personal suffering that softens by exactly 1 degree when he pours coffee from his labeled machine, and hardens again immediately when he notices me at the table. You are still here, he says. The filing is valid for 4 to 6 months, I say. So yes, frequently. His jaw tightens. He takes his coffee and leans against the counter and stares into it like it contains the answer to a question he has not figured out how to ask yet. He is 26 and the youngest and the most visibly reactive, and I want to know why my presence specifically agitates him on this particular frequency. Guilt looks different from anger. What Eugen is carrying looks different from both. CO Kangmin arrives in a pressed shirt at 7 sharp and stops when he sees me like he is recalibrating a schedule that now has an unexpected variable in it. He pours his coffee with precise movements and sits 2 seats away from me and opens his own tablet. The provisional care documentation will be ready by 9, he says, to the table apparently. There are protocols regarding shared spaces, meal access, and medical appointments that you will need to review. I already reviewed the statute, I say. All 42 pages. Kangmin's hand pauses on his coffee cup. Just for a breath. Of course you did, he says quietly. Hajun walks in last. The room temperature does not literally change when he enters, but something in the air does. A shift in the collective awareness of every person present, the way 5 separate instruments recognize when the conductor has arrived. He is dressed for the day already, dark and composed, and his eyes find me before they find anyone else. They stay there for 2 seconds longer than necessary. Good morning, I say. Because I was raised with manners, and also because watching Yeon Hajun experience the reality of my continued existence at his breakfast table is quietly the best thing that has happened to me in 6 months. Good morning, he says, in the voice that lands like a weight placed carefully on a scale. He sits directly across from me. I look down at my jjigae. My hands are warm inside my gloves, and my heart is doing the complicated thing again. And I am absolutely not thinking about how close his hands are to the table surface I am also touching. I am thinking about my notebook, about 2 names on 2 lines, about 4 more to investigate, about the fact that the man sitting directly across from me stopped outside my door last night and did not knock, which means he wanted to and decided not to, which means something is already pulling at the edges of whatever wall he built around this situation. I eat my breakfast, I keep my gloves on, I keep my face calm. Under the table, very quietly, I turn the page. The morning moves the way first mornings in unfamiliar places always do, slightly too loud in some moments and uncomfortably quiet in others. Every small sound carrying more information than it should. Spoons against ceramic, the soft mechanical hum of Kangman's tablet. Junho asking the kitchen staff if there is any more rice with the easy comfort of someone who has eaten 1,000 breakfasts in this room and never once considered that the room itself could be a crime scene. I finish my jjigae. I bring my bowl to the counter because I was raised to clean up after myself, regardless of whose house I am in, and regardless of whether that house belongs to people who dismantled my life with illegal filing. Basic decency is non-negotiable. My mother taught me that. She also taught me that the best revenge is conducted quietly and with excellent posture. I am working on the posture part. The counter is warm under my gloved hands when I set the bowl down, and for a second I am very aware of the thin cotton between my skin and the stone surface. 6 months of history in this kitchen. Meals and arguments and whatever quiet things happen in the spaces between. I do not take the gloves off. Not here, not yet, not with 5 alphas in the room who do not know what I can do. That is the only advantage I have, and I plan to keep it until I know exactly where to aim it. I am turning to go back to my room when Eugen's voice cuts across the kitchen. You wear those all the time? I look down at my hands, back at him. He is watching me over his coffee cup with an expression that is trying to be casual and landing somewhere closer to suspicious. 26 years old and already deeply bad at concealing his thoughts. It would be almost endearing if he were not on my list. Medical condition, I say. What kind? The private kind. His eyes narrow. Hajun says his name once quietly, and Eugen looks away like a compass needle correcting itself. It is a small thing, that redirection, but it tells me something about the pack's internal structure that I file away next to everything else. I go back to my room. I sit at the desk. I open my notebook and I write down every observation from breakfast, in the order it happened because details decay fast and I cannot afford to lose a single one. Junho, arrived easy, no visible tension about my presence, appears to operate on a policy of forward momentum rather than reflection. Shayul, informational not helpful, watches rather than engages, gave me useful practical knowledge without appearing to realize it was useful. Eugen, reactive, agitated, something specifically about me that is not just territorial alpha response to an unaffiliated omega, too personal. Investigate further. Kangmin, controlled, recalibrating, the pause on the coffee cup when I mentioned the 42 pages. He did not expect me to have read it. He expected someone less prepared. Hajun sat directly across from me, did not need to, chose to. Watched me the entire meal without appearing to watch me, which is a skill that requires practice, which means he has been watching people carefully for a long time. I underline Hajun's entry twice and then feel slightly unhinged about it and close the notebook. The provisional care documentation arrives at 9 as promised. A staff member brings it to my door in a neat folder. I sit cross-legged on my bed and read all 18 pages and make notes in the margins with my pen and Find 3 clauses that Kangman almost certainly included to limit my movement within the house under the appearance of protocol. I circle all 3 and write "nice try" next to each one. I am on page 14 when my psychometry activates for the first time. It is not dramatic the way people imagine it. No flash of light, no cinematic vision sequence. It is more like a door opening in the back of my skull, a sudden awareness pouring through from the object I am touching, and I realize with a cold dropping sensation that the folder itself, the physical folder the documentation arrived in, is not a generic house folder. It has been used before, recently, by someone whose emotional imprint is still warm in the cardstock the way heat lingers in a cup after the tea is gone. I cannot stop it once it starts. My psychometry does not have an off switch, only the barrier of my gloves. And I am not wearing them because I was reading alone in my room and I forgot, and now I am seeing it. A meeting room. Dark wood table. Evening light through high windows. The folder passing between hands, documents being organized inside it, and the feeling coming off it is not guilt exactly, but something adjacent. Something like the complicated weight of a decision that has already been made and cannot be unmade. And under that, quieter, something that surprises me so much I nearly drop the folder. Grief. Genuine unperformed grief. The kind that sits in the chest cavity and does not announce itself. I put the folder down on the mattress. I press my gloved hand flat against my sternum and breathe for a moment because psychometric residue always takes a second to clear, like blinking after a bright light. The room reassembles itself around me, present, real mind temporarily. I look at the folder grief, in a legal document folder, belonging to someone in this pack who is making decisions that cause them genuine sorrow. I had constructed a clean internal model of this situation, 1 villain, 4 bystanders at varying degrees of complicity, 1 straightforward route to the truth. The grief in that folder has just made my model considerably more complicated, and I am annoyed about it because complicated means human, and human means I have to actually think about these people as something other than the 5 names on my list. I hate being fair. It is exhausting. A knock, 3 measured taps. I know before I open the door. The knock sounds exactly like his footsteps, that same deliberate, unhurried quality. Hajun stands in the hallway holding a small cardboard box. He looks at my face, then at the folder on my bed, then back at my face, with an attention to detail that confirms everything I already suspected about how carefully he observes things. Your suppressant prescription, he says, renewed through the PAC's medical account as required under the PPI statute. 30-day supply. If the dosage is incorrect, the PAC physician can adjust it. He holds the box out. I look at it for a long moment, my suppressants. The thing I could not access for weeks because every clinic required a bonded alpha co-signature, and I had no one. The thing I had to ration and eventually run out of entirely, managing my biology through sheer stubbornness and strategic avoidance of stressful environments, which is nearly impossible when your entire life is a stressful environment. I take the box from his hand. Our gloved fingers do not touch, but the box passes between us, and I feel the warmth his hands left in the cardboard, and I keep my expression completely neutral, while something behind my ribs does something I am choosing not to name. Thank you, I say, and this time I mean more of it than I planned to. He nods once. He does not leave immediately. He stands in the doorway the same way Junho did last night, except where Junho was warm and forward, Hajun is still. The kind of still that has a great deal happening inside it. The east wing has a courtyard access door at the end of the hall, he says. The code is 4729. If you need air, I blink. You are giving me the door code. You are provisionally under PAC protection, he says. That includes not feeling like a prisoner. He leaves before I can construct a response to that. I stand holding my suppressants and listening to his footsteps move back down the hall, and I think about grief in a folder and a door code given freely, and a man who stopped outside my room last night and did not knock. I think about how the most dangerous thing in this investigation is not going to be the alpha who destroyed me. It is going to be the one who keeps doing things that make it harder to hate him. I write a 3rd line in my notebook. Then I stare at it for a long time. I do not underline it. I underline it anyway. Then I close the notebook and put it under my pillow like a person with completely normal investigative habits, and go take a shower because nothing resets perspective like hot water, and the mild dissociation of standing under a rainfall shower head for 8 minutes. The bathroom is warm and the water pressure is excellent, and I spend the first 3 minutes being genuinely angry about both because it is much easier to maintain righteous focus in uncomfortable conditions, and this pack house is aggressively, inconveniently comfortable. The remaining 5 minutes I spend conducting a practical internal review of my situation. Facts: I am housed, medically supplied, and legally protected. My case is active. I have already collected more information in 14 hours than I gathered in 6 months of external investigation. Junho admitted partial knowledge. Chaeyoul confirmed I was expected to be less prepared. Hajun gave me a door code and suppressants, and grief lives in his folder, and he stopped outside my room twice now. Kangmin is recalibrating. Eugene is hiding something that sits closer to personal than tactical. Progress. Real progress. I should be satisfied. I am mostly satisfied. The rest of the space is occupied by something warmer and more inconvenient that I am categorizing as a nutritional response to the jiggy and leaving it there. I get dressed. I put my gloves on. I take my notebook out from under the pillow because hiding it there was frankly embarrassing and put it in my box instead. Then I use the door code Hajun gave me and step out into the courtyard because I have been inside unfamiliar walls since yesterday afternoon, and my nervous system is filing a formal complaint. The courtyard is private and walled and green in the way that only intentional, well-funded landscaping achieves. There are low stone benches along one side and a small water feature in the corner that produces a sound like continuous quiet thinking. The late morning air is cool and carries that particular Incheon quality: city underneath, sea at the edges, everything slightly salt-softened. I sit on a bench and tip my head back and let the sun make its case for a moment. This is the first time in 6 months I have sat somewhere that felt even slightly safe and not been actively calculating my next survival move. The feeling is so unfamiliar it almost reads as suspicious. I check the courtyard perimeter out of habit. No one. Just me and the water feature and a very confident sparrow on the far wall who is eyeing my general direction with the bold energy of a creature that has never experienced consequences. I respect you, I tell the sparrow. Talking to birds already, says a voice from the courtyard door. We have only had you one day. Oh Junho steps outside with 2 cans of sikyai, the traditional sweet rice drink, and holds one out with the same easy offering gesture he used with the barley tea last night. I look at it. I look at him. Are you going to make a habit of finding me in quiet places and bringing me beverages, I ask? Possibly, he says, sitting on the bench across from mine without asking, which should be presumptuous but lands as comfortable. You look like someone who forgets to drink things when they are thinking. That is accurate, and I will not be confirming it. I take the sikyai because it is cold and I want it. What do you want, Junho? To sit outside. He opens his own can. Is that allowed? It is your courtyard. It is your courtyard for the next 4 to 6 months, he corrects, and his tone is light, but there is something underneath it, a thread of something genuine trying to find its way to the surface. He drinks. I drink. The sparrow loses interest in us and flies away, which I choose not to read as symbolism. You said something last night, I say, because I am not a patient enough person to circle this indefinitely, that you did not know it would go that far. Junho's can pauses halfway to his mouth. He lowers it slowly. His expression does the thing where the easy surface folds back just slightly to show what is underneath, and what is underneath is not comfortable. I said that. He confirms. I need you to tell me what that means. Specifically, not in the direction of comfortable vagueness. He is quiet for a moment. The water feature fills the silence with its continuous soft sound. Then he sets his can down on the bench beside him and leans forward with his elbows on his knees and looks at the courtyard stones. There was a meeting about 8 months ago. Someone in our pack had information about an omega at a production label. Information that suggested a conflict of interest with pack business. The decision to file a designation complaint was made at that meeting. My chest is doing something careful and controlled. And you were in that meeting, yes, and you voted. A pause. Yes. How did you vote? He looks up at me. His eyes are honest in a way that is almost worse than if they were not. Against, I voted against filing. I thought a formal warning through the Bureau would be sufficient. I thought the others agreed to that boundary. His jaw tightens. They did not. The courtyard is very quiet. I am running his words through every filter I have simultaneously. The timeline fits. The language of it fits. The grief I felt in that folder this morning fits. And I look at Junho now with his honest eyes and his uncomfortable posture, and I think about which hands held that folder and whether grief can belong to more than one person. Who called the meeting, I say. Sunwoo. Who called the meeting? He holds my gaze. I cannot tell you that yet. I breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. Cannot or will not. Both, he says quietly. There are things inside this pack that are more complicated than a single complaint filing. Things I am not free to explain unilaterally. But I want you to know that what happened to you was not unanimous, and it was not what I agreed to. I look at him for a long time. My psychometry is quiet behind my gloves. I do not need it for this. His face is open and his voice is steady, and the thing about people who are lying is that they do not usually volunteer the parts that make them look bad. Okay, I say finally. He blinks. Okay? I heard you, I am not forgiving you, and I am not absolving you, and I have several follow-up questions that you are apparently not ready to answer yet. But I heard you. I pick up my sickie. That is what okay means. Not that everything is fine, just that I received the information. Yoonho stares at me for a second and then does something unexpected. He laughs soft and genuine and shakes his head. You are really something, Noh Sunwoo. I am aware. We sit in the courtyard for another 20 minutes without talking much, and it is not uncomfortable, which is its own kind of problem. I am categorizing it as a tactical alliance and absolutely nothing else when the courtyard door opens again, and this time it is not someone bringing me beverages. It is Seo Kangmin in his pressed shirt with his tablet and an expression that suggests he has been looking for me with the specific energy of a man who has just realized someone is several steps ahead of him on a board he thought he was running. He looks at Junho, at me at the two Siki cans. The bureau called, he says, his eyes on me. Your advocate requested a case update meeting. I need to review the terms with you before it proceeds. I stand up. I brush off my jacket. I smile at Kangmin with every ounce of cooperative pleasantness I possess, which is a finite resource, but I budget it carefully. Of course, I say. I would love that. I follow him inside, and as I pass through the courtyard door, my bare wrist grazes the door handle for 1/2 second before I can stop it, and my psychometry fires like a struck match. A hand on this same handle, evening light, and a voice, low and desperate, saying, we cannot let him find out which one of us it was. Not yet. Not until we know how much he can prove. The vision clears. I am in the hallway. Kangmin is 3 steps ahead of me, talking about scheduling. I walk behind him with my face completely calm and my heart hammering, and the voice from the door handle still echoing in the back of my skull. We cannot let him find out which one of us it was. Not yet. Not until we know how much he can prove. They are already coordinating, all of them or enough of them. They know I am here for the truth, and they are managing how much of it reaches me, and in what order. I look at the back of Kangmin's perfectly pressed collar, and I think, that is the first mistake of someone who does not yet understand what I am. I can touch anything in this house. I can touch everything, and now I know exactly where to start. The meeting with Kangmin takes 40 minutes, and every single one of them is a performance. His performance and mine, running simultaneously in the same room like 2 separate plays that happen to share a stage. He walks me through the provisional care terms with the precise diction of someone who wrote the document himself, which he did, and I listen and ask clarifying questions and take notes in my notebook, and the entire time I am thinking about the voice from the door handle. We cannot let him find out which one of us it was. The we is the most important word in that sentence, not I. We, which means the meeting Junho described 8 months ago did not end cleanly. Some of them are still coordinating. Some of them agreed on a story and have been maintaining it, and the arrival of one Omega with a government document and cotton gloves has apparently required them to reconvene. I write we in the margin of my notebook and circle it 3 times while Kangmin explains the medical appointment protocol. He notices me writing. Questions? Just notes, I say pleasantly. I am a very thorough person. You may have gathered that. His pen taps once against his own folder, a small involuntary rhythm that stops the moment he registers it. Kangmin is a man who has spent years making sure nothing about him is involuntary, and I have been cataloging his tells for 2 days, and he does not know it. The Bureau update meeting is Thursday, he says. I will accompany you as the PAC's legal representative. That is not required under the statute, I say. It is standard practice. It is standard practice for PACs who are contesting the filing, I say. Are you contesting the filing, Seo Kangmin? A pause so brief it almost does not exist. No. Then I will attend with my own advocate, I say. Still pleasant, still cooperative, still taking notes, as is my right under Clause 7, Paragraph 3. But thank you for the offer. He looks at me for a long moment with those sharp, recalibrating eyes, and I look back with my best expression of mild administrative interest, and eventually he closes his folder and says the meeting is concluded. I leave the room with my notebook and my gloves and the understanding that Kangmin is not going to give me anything directly. He is too controlled, too aware, too legally precise to leave a door open that he does not intend to leave open, which means I need to touch something of his. I am not proud of the plan. It is ethically complicated, and I have a whole internal framework about consent and psychometry that I developed in my late teens after I accidentally read my roommate's childhood through his jacket sleeve and cried about it for an hour. The framework basically says, do not read people without cause. 6 months of targeted destruction is cause. I think about this standing in the hallway outside the meeting room for exactly 30 seconds. And then I think about my empty apartment and my suspended certification and the weeks I spent rationing suppressants, and I decide my ethical framework can take a brief sabbatical. The opportunity presents itself that afternoon in the most mundane way possible. I am in the main hallway, and Kangmin is coming from the opposite direction, and we arrive at the corner simultaneously, and he reaches out to steady me before I can register that we are about to collide, and his hand closes around my wrist above my glove, and my psychometry detonates like something that has been waiting. I see the meeting room again, the same dark wood table from the folder's memory, but fuller now, all five of them present, and the feeling is different this time. Sharper. The document on the table is the designation complaint. I know it from the shape of it, and the voice speaking is Kangmin's own voice, careful and persuasive, making the case for filing. And underneath the words is something I was not expecting. Fear, not anger, not cruelty. Genuine fear with a specific texture. The fear of someone who believes he is preventing something worse. And then another layer beneath that, something that makes the vision tilt sideways in a way that turns my understanding of the last 6 months completely around. A name. Not mine. A name I recognize and was not prepared to hear in this context. The vision ends. Kangmin has already stepped back and is straightening his sleeve with the focused attention of a man who does not register that anything unusual just happened. My face is neutral. My heart is a disaster. Excuse me, he says, and continues down the hall. I stand at the corner for a moment and breathe. Then I go directly to my room, close the door, take out my notebook, and write down everything I just saw before the edges of it fade, because psychometric visions have a half-life and I cannot afford to lose a single detail. The name I write down is not one of the 5 alphas. It is the name of the person the pack was afraid of. The person Kangmin was afraid of. The person whose involvement with an omega at the label, meaning me, had apparently created enough of a threat to the pack's stability that filing a designation complaint felt like the safer option compared to whatever the alternative was. I stare at the name on the page. Then I hear raised voices from down the hall, and my head comes up because raised voices in this house, in my limited experience, are not a common occurrence. I open my door. The voices are coming from the main sitting room, and I walk toward them because I am a person with excellent self-preservation instincts that I routinely override in favor of information. The door is half open, and I stop just outside it and listen. Eugen's voice, stripped of its careful edges. You should have told him the truth from the first day. Both of you. Hajun's voice, very quiet. It is not that simple. He is living here. He eats breakfast with us. How is it not simple? Because the truth is not only about the complaint. Hajun, still quiet, but with something underneath it now, something pressurized. There are things that happen before the complaint that he does not know, and that affect what the truth means. Then tell him those things. And if telling him makes it worse, silence. Then Eugen again, and his voice has lost its anger and replaced it with something younger and rawer. It is already worse, young. Every day he is here and does not know is another day it is worse. I am standing very still in the hallway. My notebook is in my hand. My gloves are on. The door is half open, and the light from the sitting room falls in a warm stripe across the floor. And inside that room, 2 members of the pack that destroyed me are arguing about whether to tell me the truth, and apparently they have been having this argument for longer than today. Hajun says low and final, not yet. I hear Eugen make a sound of pure frustration. Footsteps moving toward the door. I take 3 steps back down the hallway and turn to face the wall unit, like I am examining the architectural photography, and absolutely was not standing here listening. Eugen comes through the door and stops when he sees me, and his face goes through 4 separate expressions in 2 seconds. I look at the photograph on the wall. It is a black and white image of Incheon port at dawn. Very artistic. Nice photo, I say. Eugen stares at me. How long have you been standing there? I was just passing through. I look at him, and his face is still doing complicated things. And I see it clearly now, the thing I could not place before. The way he looks at me is not just guilt or anger. It is the specific expression of someone who knows something about you that you do not know about yourself and cannot decide whether telling you would help or destroy you. I know that expression because I have worn it, reading someone's truth through their belongings and having to decide what to do with it. Eugen, I say, and I use his name without the honorific deliberately, not as disrespect but as an offering of directness. Whatever you know, I am going to find it out anyway. I always do. He looks at me for a long moment. Something shifts in his jaw. His scent changes, that sharp, agitated note softening into something more complicated. There is a room on the 3rd floor, he says quietly. 2nd door on the left. Hajun keeps it locked, but the key is on the hook behind the kitchen calendar. He pauses. I have been in that room. I know what is in it. He walks past me down the hallway before I can respond. I stand very still. Behind me, the sitting room is quiet. Hajun has not come through the door. He is still in there, sitting with his not yet, and he does not know that his youngest pack member just handed me a key. I look down at my gloved hands. Then I look toward the kitchen. I stand in the hallway for exactly 4 seconds having a conversation with my better judgment. My better judgment makes several reasonable points about consent, privacy, and the ethical implications of entering a locked room using a key obtained from a pack member who may or may not have his own agenda. My better judgment is thorough and articulate and raises valid concerns. I walk to the kitchen. The calendar is on the wall beside the refrigerator, a printed landscape one with photographs of Korean national parks, currently open to a mountain I recognize as Seoraksan. Behind it, on a small hook drilled directly into the wall, is a single key on a plain metal ring, no label. Just the key, waiting with the patience of something that has been waiting a long time. I take it off the hook, I put it in my pocket. I walk back into the hallway and up the stairs to the third floor with the steady, purposeful pace of a person who has made a decision and is committed to it, which I am, mostly, with a small but vocal minority still registered in opposition. The third floor is quieter than the rest of the house. Fewer rooms, fewer signs of regular use. The hallway is the same pale stone and warm walls, but the art up here is different. Less architectural photography, more personal. A framed print of a Han River photograph, old and slightly faded at the edges. A child's drawing in a simple frame that stops me for a second because it is so unexpectedly human in the middle of all this controlled, polished space. I count doors. First on the left. Second on the left. The second door is plain and dark, and there is nothing about it that announces itself as significant, which is how you know it is significant. I take the key out of my pocket. I look at it in my gloved hand for a moment, then I unlock the door and push it open. The room is an office. Small and dim, the single window covered by a half-drawn blind that lets in a stripe of afternoon light across the floor. A desk, bookshelves, stacked files and folders, and a small wooden box in the corner of the desk that I see immediately because my psychometry is already pulling toward it like a compass needle swinging north. I close the door behind me. I stand in the center of the room and breathe carefully. The room smells like Hajun. Cedar and cold mountain air concentrated here, where he has spent time and kept things, and been alone with whatever this room contains. It is a deeply private smell in a way that makes me feel the specific guilt of standing somewhere I was not invited. I catalog the guilt, acknowledge it, and set it aside because I did not come this far to turn back at a door. I go to the desk, and I do not touch anything yet. I look first. The files are organized with the same precise care as everything Kangmin adjacent in this house, but the handwriting on the tabs is different, less formal, slightly uneven, in a way that suggests someone writing quickly or under pressure. One folder near the top has a tab that reads Bureau Correspondence, and my stomach does something slow and significant, because that is my case, my designation review. Filed and organized and kept up here in a locked room, I touch the Bureau Correspondence folder with my bare hand. The vision comes immediately, and it is longer than the others, more layered, because this folder has been handled many times by hands carrying different weights on different days. I see fragments in sequence, not a film but a series of photographs, each one burning its emotional imprint into my awareness before the next arrives. Hajun at this desk, reading documents, and the feeling coming off him is not what I expected, not the cold calculation of someone managing a threat. It is something wound tight and painful. The feeling of a person's watching a situation spiral past the point where he can correct it and not knowing how to stop it. Hajun on a phone call, something handwritten on the desk in front of him, and the emotion is sharper here, anger, but aimed inward, not outward, the particular self-directed fury of someone who made a decision and is living inside the consequences of it. And then the last fragment, more recent, the emotional imprint still warm. Hajun sitting at this desk with my file open and a photograph on top of it, and I cannot see the photograph clearly in the vision, but I feel what he feels looking at it, and it knocks the air out of me because it is not guilt, not strategy, not management of a problem. It is longing, old and careful, and clearly not the first time he has felt it, and clearly something he has been refusing to name for a very long time. The vision ends. I am gripping the folder with both bare hands, and the room is very quiet, and I release it carefully and step back and press my gloves back onto my hands and stand there breathing. Longing. For me. For a person he helped destroy, whether directly or by failing to stop it, the result is the same, and I know the outcome was identical regardless of the internal emotional landscape, and yet I pick up the small wooden box from the corner of the desk with my gloved hands, no vision, just the weight of it. I open it. Inside is a folded piece of paper, and beneath that, a USB drive, and beneath that, something that stops my breath completely. My old bureau registration card. From before the complaint. The one that would have been flagged and voided when the designation review opened. It should be in a bureau archive somewhere. Inaccessible, part of the frozen case file. It is here, in Hajun's locked room, In a box on his desk, I pick it up with my bare hand. The vision is brief and devastating. Hajun's hands receiving this card from someone else's hands, the other person's voice saying destroy it, and there is no record of his original status, and Hajun's response, quiet and absolute. No. Just that. No. And then the card going into the box, and the box going into this room, and a lock turning on a door that has apparently not been opened since. He kept it. He refused to destroy it, and he kept it. And it has been sitting in this box, on this desk, in this locked room for 6 months. My original designation record intact. Which means if this case ever went to a formal tribunal, this card would be the evidence that proved my status was legitimate before the complaint, and it was never flagged in bad faith. He kept the one thing that could protect me. I put the card back in the box. I put the box back on the desk. I fold my hands in my lap and sit in Hajun's chair in Hajun's locked room and stare at the wall for a moment because I need 1 minute where I am not performing composure for an audience. 1 minute where I let the thing this room just told me actually land. He helped cause this. I do not know the full shape of it yet, not the name from Kangman's vision, not the complete timeline, not every decision and every vote and every failure to intervene. But he also kept the one object that could undo it. He sat in this room with my file and my photograph and something that looked like longing, and he did not destroy the evidence that could save me. That is not innocence. But it is not only guilt either. It is something human and complicated, and I am furious about it because simple would have been so much easier. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I pull it out. A message from my advocate. Thursday's bureau meeting has been moved up. New date, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., and then a second message immediately after. The PAC's legal representative has already filed a motion to delay. Kangman, 40 minutes ago. I look at the message. I look around the room. I look at the wooden box on the desk. Kangman filed to delay my bureau meeting 40 minutes ago, which is approximately 40 minutes after I left his documentation review, and approximately 10 minutes after I took the key from behind the kitchen calendar. He does not know I came up here, but he knows I am moving faster than he planned for, and he is trying to slow me down. I stand up. I smooth my jacket. I put the key in my pocket because I am going to return it exactly where I found it, and no one is going to know I was here. Then the door opens. Yeon Hajun stands in the doorway. His key is in his hand. His eyes go to the box on the desk, to my face, to my gloved hands, to my face again, and the expression on it is not anger. It is the expression of a man who just walked into the moment he has been dreading and finds it is both worse and less terrible than he imagined. The room is very quiet. Sunwoo, he says, and the way he says my name in this room with this light and this particular silence sounds nothing like any of the times he has said it before. It sounds like someone setting something heavy down after a very long time of carrying it. I look at him from across his desk in his locked room with his evidence box between us, and I say the only true thing I have in this moment. Start talking, Yeon Hajun. He does not move from the doorway for a long moment. The afternoon light comes through the half-drawn blind in that same stripe across the floor, and it cuts between us like something that cannot decide which side it belongs on. His key is still in his hand. He looks at it, then at me, and something in his face does what I have been watching it almost do for 2 days now. It breaks open, quietly. The way ice cracks on a river in early spring, not dramatic, just a sound, and then the whole surface is different. He comes into the room. He closes the door. He sits in the chair across from the desk and leans forward with his elbows on his knees, and he starts talking. 8 months ago, a man named Shin Do-yeon contacted the PAC, he says. His voice is low and without performance. Just words placed carefully. He said he had an Omega inside Lim Records who had been gathering information about our PAC's business structure. Financial records, internal communications. Things that, if they went to the Bureau of PAC Affairs, would have triggered a formal investigation into how the Yeon PAC manages its designation contracts. I am very still. What kind of investigation? The kind that ends PACs. He holds my gaze. 3 years ago, we made a contract arrangement that was legal on paper and wrong in practice. An Omega designation reassignment that Kangman structured to protect a business deal. The Omega consented under conditions that were not free. We knew that, and we did it anyway. A pause. I knew that, and I did it anyway. The room holds that sentence for a moment. Shin Do-yeon said you were gathering this information to expose us. Hajun continues. He had documentation, messages, a timeline that looked credible. Kangman reviewed it and said if we did not move first, the PAC would not survive the Bureau investigation. And you believed him, I say. Kangman believed him. I had doubts. His jaw tightens. I did not act on my doubts fast enough. I think about Kangman's vision, the fear underneath his precision, the name that was not one of the 5 alphas. Shin Do-yeon, I say. He is the name in Kangman's documentation, the one I saw. Hajun goes very still. What do you mean, saw? I pull off my right glove. I set it on the desk between us. I look at him and let him look at my bare hand, and I watch his eyes move from my hand to my face as the understanding arrives slowly and then all at once. Psychometry, I say. I read the history of objects through touch. I have been able to do it since I was 16. Your folder, the door handle, Kangman's wrist. I pause. Your box. He looks at the wooden box. When he looks back at me, his expression has the quality of a man who has just recalculated an entire situation from the beginning and arrived at a different answer than the one he had been living with. You already know, he says quietly. Most of it. Most of it, I confirm. I know Shin Do-yeon fed your pack false information about me. I know Kangman filed the complaint based on that information. I know Junho voted against it. I know you kept my registration card instead of destroying it. I know the grief I felt in that folder belongs to you. I look at him steadily. What I do not know yet is why Shin Do-yeon targeted me specifically, or what I did that made me the right person to frame. Hajun is quiet for a moment. Then, carefully, you did not do anything. Shin Do-yeon works for the same label you worked for. He was the one actually gathering information about our pack. When he realized the Bureau investigation was coming regardless, he needed someone to redirect attention toward. Someone unaffiliated and unprotected enough that a designation complaint would stick. He pauses on the next words like they cost him something. You were convenient, and I am sorry. I know that is not enough. The room is very quiet. I have imagined this moment. During the weeks on the Jim Julbang floor, during the days of rationing suppressants, during every humiliating conversation with bureau clerks who looked at me like I was already guilty, I imagine hearing the truth and feeling something clean and sharp and vindicating. What I actually feel is more complicated than that. It is relief and grief and anger and something else moving underneath all of it that I am not ready to name in this room with this man looking at me like that. The bureau meeting is tomorrow, I say. I know. Kangman filed to delay it 40 minutes ago. Something moves across his face, swift and decisive. He takes out his phone, types something, puts it back in his pocket. It will be withdrawn tonight. I look at him, just like that, just like that. His voice is quiet and absolute. Sunwoo. Whatever Kangman filed, whatever any of us have done to slow this down or manage it, that ends now. You have been in this house for 2 days, and I have watched you carry 6 months of damage that we put on you and call it investigation, and I am done calling it that. He looks at my bare hand on the desk, then at my face. You deserve the full truth, and you deserve it publicly, and the pack will provide it. Something behind my ribs is doing that complicated thing again, and this time I cannot file it under nutritional responses or tactical alliance or any of the other categories I have been using to keep it contained. I put my glove back on, then I take it back off. I reach across the desk, and I press my bare hand flat against the wooden box, and I let the psychometry run. Not because I need more information, but because I want to feel what I already know, and what I feel is exactly what I felt before. Longing. Long and careful and stubborn, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind that has been sitting quietly in a locked room for months waiting for a door to open. I look up at Hajun. He is watching my face the way he has been watching my face since the lobby. That same careful, contained attention, but the containment is gone now, and what is underneath it is the most unguarded thing I have seen on him. I need you to know, he says, very quietly, that none of what I feel now started because you moved in here. It started before the complaint. When your name was first brought to me, I looked you up, because I always research what comes before the pack, and I found your work, your sound designs. The label had posted one publicly 6 months before all of this, and it was the most. He stops. Starts again. I filed your registration card because I could not destroy it. I could not destroy it because destroying it felt like destroying you, and I could not do that. The afternoon light has shifted while we have been talking. The stripe across the floor is longer now, warmer, reaching closer to where I am sitting. I stand up from behind his desk. I walk around it and I stop in front of him, and he looks up at me from his chair, and neither of us speaks for a moment. You hurt me, I say. Your pack hurt me. That is not erased by this conversation or by a registration card in a box or by giving me a door code. My voice is steady. I need you to understand that before anything else happens in this room. I understand that, he says. I am not asking you to erase it. What are you asking? He stands up slowly. We are close in the small room, and his scent is cedar and cold mountain air, and that unnamed thing underneath. And I have been aware of it for 2 days, and I am aware of it now in a way that is no longer possible to categorize as anything except what it actually is. I am asking for the chance to be the person who fixes it, he says. All of it, publicly, completely, whatever it costs the pack. I look at him for a long moment. Then I reach up and I press my bare hand against his jaw. Not a reading, not my psychometry, just my hand against his face, and I feel him go completely still under my touch the way something does when it has been waiting a very long time to be held. Thursday, I say quietly. You have until Thursday to tell Chaeul and Kangmin and Yujin that the truth comes out at the bureau meeting whether they prepare for it or not. Done, he says, without hesitating. And Junho gets to be there when it happens. He voted against it. He deserves to see it corrected. Done. I lower my hand. I step back. I pick up my glove from the desk and I look at it for a second and I put it in my pocket instead of on my hand because I am tired, suddenly and completely, of the barrier. I walk to the door. I open it. I look back at him once. He is standing in the stripe of afternoon light with his hands at his sides and his face open in a way I suspect very few people have ever seen it, and he looks exactly like what he is. A man who made a terrible choice and has been locked in a room with it ever since, waiting to find out if there is a way through it. Hajun, I say. Yes. Your sound design review for the label's quarterly submission, the one that crossed my desk 3 weeks before the complaint. I pause. I submitted positive notes on it. I thought your pack's acoustic work was excellent. A beat. I thought you should know that I was already paying attention too. I leave the room. I walk down the hallway and I hear behind me the quietest sound. Barely a sound at all, just breath released from somewhere deep in the chest of a man who has been holding it for 8 months. Downstairs, the house is settling into evening. The smell of dinner is already coming from the kitchen. Junho's laugh carries from somewhere in the back of the house, and Chaeul's voice says something dry in response, and even that is almost warm. I sit on the bottom stair and I press my bare hands flat against my knees, and I let the house speak to me, all its layered history, all 5 of them moving through these rooms for years before I arrived. And underneath all the complicated feelings and the careful strategies and the grief in folders and the longing in boxes, I feel something I was not expecting. The house feels under my hands like it has been waiting, not for a legal filing or a case resolution or a convenient omega with a government document, for exactly this. For someone to come in and refuse to leave until it told the truth. My phone buzzes. A message from Kangmin. 3 words. Motion withdrawn. Thursday. I look at the message for a moment. Then I look up and Junho is standing at the end of the hall with 2 cups of barley tea, because apparently that is simply who he is as a person. And behind him, Lim Chaeul is visible in the kitchen doorway watching me with those sharp, dark eyes. And from upstairs, I can hear Yan Hajun's footsteps moving toward the stairs, with that deliberate, unhurried pace that I have already learned to recognize anywhere in this house. 5 alphas. And 4 to 6 months suddenly feeling less like a sentence and more like a beginning. I put my bare hands around the warm cup Junho offers me. I do not put my gloves back on. Somewhere across the city, in an office at Lim Records, a man named Shin Do-yeon has not yet received the message that the Yan Pack's legal motion has been withdrawn. By morning, he will understand what that means, and so will everyone else. I sit with that thought, and the warm cup in my bare hands, and the pack house breathing around me like something that has finally exhaled after holding its breath for a very long time. The evening settles in through the courtyard door Hajun gave me the code to, soft and salt-edged, carrying the particular Incheon quality that I have decided, quietly and without announcing it, that I do not entirely hate. 6 months ago, I had nothing. No apartment, no certification, no medical access, no pack, no proof, no one in my corner except a bureau advocate with borrowed Wi-Fi and an obscure legal statute that almost nobody knew existed. Now I have a warm cup of barley tea in my bare hands, a notebook full of truths that are about to become public record, and 5 alphas who are sitting with the weight of what they owe me in 5 separate rooms of a house that the law says is mine for 4 to 6 months. I think about my mother, about what she told me when I was 12 and my psychometry first activated, and I came home crying because I had touched a stranger's umbrella and seen 3 years of his loneliness in a single second. She sat with me on the kitchen floor and she said, "Your gift is not a curse. It is just love with no filter, and love with no filter is the most honest thing in the world." I did not understand that then. I think I am starting to understand it now. Not because 5 alphas are falling for me, though the evidence on that particular point is becoming difficult to ignore. Not because the truth is coming out on Thursday, though it is, and it will, and Shin Do-yeon has absolutely no idea what is coming for him. But because I came into this house alone and afraid, and pretending not to be afraid, and I kept my gloves on and my notebook close, and my wits sharp, and my heart locked down tight, and somewhere between the first breakfast and the locked room, and the bare hand against a jaw in the afternoon light, something shifted. I stopped surviving. I started staying, not because I had to, not because the statute required it, but because this strange, complicated, guilty, searching, occasionally ridiculous pack of 5 men in a too-large house in Songdo is, against every reasonable prediction, starting to feel like something I did not know I was missing. I am not forgiving anyone tonight. I want to be clear about that. Forgiveness is going to be a long, documented, fully witnessed process with receipts. But I am sitting on the bottom stair with my bare hands around a warm cup, and for the first time in 6 months, I am not cold. That feels like enough for tonight. That feels quietly and against all odds, like the beginning of something. Outside the city hums. Inside, five alphas who thought they knew how this story ended are only now beginning to understand. They broke him once. They have no idea what he is about to build. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. That means everything, truly. If this story made you feel something, if you gasped, if you smiled, if you sat up a little straighter when Sunwoo walked into that lobby and refused to be anything less than exactly himself, then this was made for you. Stories like this one exist because of viewers like you who show up, stay until the last word, and carry these characters around with them after the screen goes dark. If you want more omegaverse stories, more sassy omegas who outthink everyone in the room, more slow burn tension that earns every single moment of warmth it delivers, hit that subscribe button right now. New stories drop regularly, and every single one is built to make you feel exactly the way you felt just now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. Now go tell someone about Noh Sunwoo because he deserves to be known.